In 1922, a woman named Grace Fryer blew her nose into a handkerchief. When she pulled it away, the handkerchief was glowing. She was 23 years old. She had a good job, better pay than almost any woman in New Jersey. She had done nothing wrong. She was already dying, and so were 70 of her friends. April 10th, 1917. 4 days after America entered the First World War, an 18-year-old named Grace Fryer starts work at the United States Radium Corporation in Orange, New Jersey. She has 2 brothers in uniform. She wants to help. The job is painting watch dials, the glowing numbers on instruments soldiers will read in the dark. The pay is more than triple the average factory wage. 70 other young women start alongside her. The paint is called Undark. It is radium powder mixed with glue and water. It glows a soft, greenish white. And to paint a number the size of a grain of rice, you need a brush with a perfect point. So they were taught a technique. Dip the brush, put it in your mouth, draw it between your lips to shape the tip, paint, repeat. Grace later testified, "Our instructors told us to point them with our lips. I think I pointed mine with my lips about 6 times to every watch. 6 times a watch, 250 watches a day." They were 19, 20, 22 years old. Some were as young as 11. The dust settled on everything. It settled in their hair and on their clothes. And when they walked home in the evening, they shone faintly in the dark. Their families called them the Ghost Girls. They thought it was wonderful. They painted their fingernails with it. They painted their teeth before a date so their smile would glow when the lights went down. Here is what they did not know. In the same building, on a different floor, the chemists handled radium with lead screens, face masks, and steel tongs. The women at the tables were given nothing. No mask, no screen, no warning. The company's own literature, printed and distributed to doctors, contained a section headed Radium Dangers, Injurious Effects. Some of the references in it dated to 1906, 11 years before Grace Fryer walked through the door. It started with a toothache. Amelia Maggia, everyone called her Mollie, felt a pain in her jaw in 1921. The dentist pulled the tooth. The pain spread. He pulled another, then another. Then the dentist reached into her mouth, took hold of her jawbone, and it came away in his fingers. It did not break. It simply lifted out. Mollie Maggia died in 1922. She was 24. Her death certificate said syphilis. It was not syphilis. The radium had gone where all radium goes. Chemically, it behaves almost exactly like calcium, so the body, unable to tell the difference, filed it away in the bones, in their jaws, their spines, their hips. And there it stayed, firing radiation outward through the bone from the inside for the rest of their lives. A dentist in New York named Theodore Bloom saw enough of these cases to give it a name in 1924. He called it radium jaw. The women's teeth fell out. Their jaws crumbled. Their legs shortened as their hips collapsed. Some developed tumors the size of grapefruits. Some broke their own bones simply by standing up. By the mid-1920s, a Newark pathologist named Harrison Martland had worked out what was killing them, and that it could not be undone. The radium was in their bones. There was no treatment. There was no way to take it out. U.S. Radium's response was to insist the women were not sick from radium. They said it was syphilis. They said it while the women were dying. They spread it deliberately. A disease that in 1925 destroyed a young woman's reputation as thoroughly as it destroyed her body. Some of the women lost their fiancés. Some were shunned by their neighbors. Grace Fryer decided to sue. It took her 2 years to find a lawyer who would take the case. Attorney after attorney refused. Some didn't believe her. Some wouldn't fight a corporation that size. In 1927, a young lawyer named Raymond Berry took it on. 4 other women joined her: Quinta McDonald, Albina Larice, Edna Hussman, and Katherine Schaub. Quinta and Albina were Mollie Maggia's sisters. They were suing over their own sister's death while dying of the same thing. The newspapers called them the case of the 5 women doomed to die. By the time the case was heard, Grace Fryer could not walk. Her spine had collapsed. She wore a steel back brace. She could not raise her arm to take the oath. They needed proof. In 1927, 5 years after her death, Mollie Maggia's coffin was lifted out of the ground at Rosedale Cemetery, with company representatives, doctors, lawyers, and her own family standing there watching. They opened it. Her body glowed. Every portion of tissue and bone they tested was radioactive. Mollie Maggia, 5 years dead, had come back to testify. They settled in 1928. Each woman received $10,000 and $600 a year for life. For most of them, life meant a few more years. Grace Fryer died in 1933. She was 34. She had said when it started, "It is not for myself I care. I am thinking more of the hundreds of girls to whom this may serve as an example." Their case forced radium out of the factories. It established that a worker could sue an employer for an occupational disease, something the law had not previously allowed. It fed directly into the safety standards that, 20 years later, protected the men building the atomic bomb. Radium has a half-life of 1,600 years, which means that in the ground at Rosedale Cemetery in Orange, New Jersey, the radium that killed Mollie Maggia has barely begun to decay. It will still be there long after everyone reading her name has gone.